Okay, so we are stage 19.
Yeah, I think we're ready to go now. We good? Was.
Embrom de Isla 2000.
Okay, I think we're ready. Welcome to our live Tour de France podcast.
It's stage 19 of the Tour de France. This podcast is brought to you by our amazing sponsor, Wattbike. Wattbike have been an amazing long-term sponsor for us. I love endorsing Wattbike because it's a product I bought for full retail price long before they ever supported the podcast. If you're looking to get going with indoor training, I highly suggest you check it out. Go over to wattbike.com, use the code ROADMAN, ROADMANTEN, and you're going to get 10% off your Wattbike. It's the best investment you're ever going to make into your training. Sarah, we've plenty to unpack from another action-packed stage 19 of the Tour de France.
Yeah, it was great. We were there from kilometre 0, and Pogačar has been ruthless yet again, and it really is amazing to watch. We touched on it yesterday. But there is an alternative perspective on this whole thing, isn't there?
Yeah, Wes, I think, has a video. Do you want to play a little extract from the Move podcast where Armstrong obviously needs no introduction, 7-time Tour de France champion. Sarah, you might pull that mic a bit closer to you in case they're struggling to hear you. 7-time Tour de France champion, and he's uniquely positioned to talk to us.
Here's the deal.
I know a lot of detractors have there. Say what you will about Armstrong, but there's not many people in the cycling game who get the chance to offer the perspective from being a leader in the Tour de France, having speculation about them and what fuels it and what kind of fans that fire. And that's what this clip is talking about. So, Wes, if you play that clip, and we'll have a little look at it.
Here's the deal. Big mistake. I'm speaking to this from experience. Now, my career, everybody knows my career, right? There was plenty of stuff out there, plenty of curiosity and speculation and accusation. Fair play, right? It's not necessary. He does not, this, keep in mind, this isn't just a sporting event. This isn't, hey, put the numbers on my back. Where's the start line? Show me the finish line. Yes, it is that, but it's not just that. It is also a political event, right? If there's no need to do that, it's just going to bring more attention to him, and people will see that and say, come on, what are you doing? And if there's any speculation, which I don't follow this stuff, nor do I really care, if there's any speculation out there about him, this will not help. It is not necessary. You're not going to get any friends either in the peloton or in the press room. You're just not. I would advise him, and God love him. God bless him.
Whoa.
So, speaking from experience, there's not many people that can speak from that experience. What do you make of it? Do you think there's truth in it? Should Pogačar be, for want of a better word, handing out gifts, or should he play this political game that Armstrong's talking about?
Yeah, I guess, look, as you said, it's as we were saying, it's a completely different perspective, which is brilliant to see, and one that I wouldn't really have thought about. I said it yesterday, Pogačar is a competitor, and I don't think he's going to give any gimmies to anybody, no gifts. I think it does shed a little bit of light on it. I mean, Pogačar is not always going to be at the top either. He's not always going to be this dominant figure within the sport, because everybody's career ebbs, and flows. And then as he's coming towards the end of his career, he's potentially making a couple of enemies out there. I don't know. What do you think?
It's fan and speculation is the problem with it, because cycling, as much as we want to think it's progressive and it's this new age with Pogačar, Jonas, we can't be removed from even some of the background team that are in UAE and Visma. They have very checkered histories. So when people see the data like is coming from Pogačar, again, this is estimated data. You never know, these random number generators people are pulling out. But it looks like Twitter is saying for the ascent of the Isola 2000, the Pogačar averaged 6.83 watts per kilogram for 37.44 minutes. So if you average that or normalize that for sea level values, that'd be 7.21 watts per kilogram for 37 minutes, which these are unheard of figures from the doping generation. And we had comments when we talked about this a few days ago for one of his previous records, or one of his previous ascents in the Tour. It was roughly, I think, a 7.14 for 27 minutes. People are saying, well, you can't compare Armstrong and Pantani's times to Pogačar because he's on different bikes, different tires, different tarmac. we're not talking about the speed he's going up the climb. We're talking about how hard he's pushing down on the pedals, the raw power that he's generating. Pantani, Armstrong, they weren't getting much above 6 watts per kilogram, and now it's 7.14. I know you want to go on and talk about carbohydrates, fueling. That's undoubtedly made a difference, but the speculation is still going to happen. And I don't know. I can see Armstrong's point that you need to maybe just give a different story out there. You know, sorry to cut across you, but if Jorgensen wins today, the story isn't Pogačar again doing one of these record-breaking ascents. It gives him a little bit of a reprieve, a little bit of a break from that. So I can see the point from that perspective, but as fans of the sport, it's fun to watch.
So you think what Lance is talking about there is purely with regards to whispers and rumours about doping, PEDs, EPO, etc., all the stuff that he had to deal with, or the political side of it? Do you think that it's my take on it, where he's annoying other teams, annoying other team DS? There's
both. I think it's both.
Yeah, there's sponsors on board that are from other teams that are getting annoyed because they're not getting any wins. So it's both.
Yeah, people aren't getting anything out of the tour. So
they're getting nothing out of the tour. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, it is a really, really interesting take from someone who's been in his situation, I guess. But Poggy's going to do what Poggy always does. I think he's just a shark. He's a winner. Okay, before the race yesterday, or kicked off today, we had some information come out from Carpenarts yesterday and how he fueled his race. So this is crazy, because we know that there's really an arms race from aerodynamics, equipment, tech, nutrition, hydration, and all of these minute details that everyone's focusing on. So Carpenarts took a whopping 130 grams per hour of carbs in that race yesterday, which is insane, because I looked this up, and 10 years ago it was thought that a max of 60 to 70 grams per hour was only possible, and that was the max that was going to be tolerated by the body or absorbed or tolerated by your stomach. So we've basically doubled the amount and the technology of absorbing carbs. The science is crazy. And that 130 grams per hour that he took in is 20% higher than what Pogačar, Remco and Jonas are using. And not only that, now we know that Carpenarts is really detailed, focused, and he has the whole team have a nutrition sponsor, and they came out with the kind of an interesting graph today to say that he drinks a litre of water per hour. So the average rider, we would say, takes 500 millilitres per hour of water, but his relative sodium concentrate is 635 milligrams per litre, which is really, really high. So he's really focusing on getting all those salts back in, not just hydrating with water alone. So the numbers are really high, aren't they?
Where did he get the stat that he took in 20% more carbohydrates than Pogačar, Remco and Jonas?
This is an article that I read.
I would challenge that. Like 130 grams of carbohydrates per hour isn't that high anymore in the modern peloton.
Yes, but there's still, I mean, look, if we look at what Pogačar took the other day, he basically admitted that he bonked. I mean, you said that Pogačar's kryptonite is altitude, but I think it has been kind of how he fuels and gets through some of these rides. He doesn't have a big focus on nutrition.
No. I think that's unfair to say he doesn't have a big focus on nutrition as well. I think the other day when he attacked, we talked about the lack of access to nutrition, not his poor fueling strategy, like not his inability to take carbohydrates in. I don't think that Pogačar has an inability to take 120 grams of carbs per hour, because you need to train your gut to take this. I think what happened that day was the gap never got big enough for the team car to get up to him, so he just couldn't take a gel. Yeah,
well, as I said, from what I've read, this is a much higher than what Pogačar, Remco and Jonas are using. So
maybe it's misleading because it's yesterday's stage. I can see that if Pogačar, Remco and Jonas are cruising in the bunch, they're taking lower carbohydrate concentrate than Carpenarts, who's in the break all day. But 120 to 140 is pretty much the standard now. It does kind of strike me that maybe, I think it's a Precision Nutrition that's sponsoring Lotto. It does strike me that maybe that's a little bit of marketing spin from them. Like almost any lad I've had on the podcast talking about his nutrition, World Tour wise, is talking 120 to 140 grams per hour at the moment. So it seems within the range. But as I said then, if the lads are in the bunch cruising all day, obviously there's a lower glycolytic stage, but maybe it was today. and it would be nice to go for the stage to repay the guys, but first defensive. He really likes to put the lads to work on a stage. Like, there's not many days where the lads are clocking in and saying, well, this is going to be an easy day for us. We're going to just
There's none.
float through today's stage.
Yeah, like we'll go through Yates. He gave a couple of comments at the end, and he said that on the last climb, Poggy was in the headphones just saying more, more, more.
He's like, I haven't got any more.
Yeah, he was just constantly asking for more and more and more. I think so, yeah. I think he's had a little bit of a bug. So, yeah, I mean, the lads really do make the big bucks, and they really earn those 250 grand watches that they're all wearing on their wrists as well.
The Richard Mille.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive in and unpack the action. But before we do, let's talk about actually what today's stage was. So we started out in Embrun. It was a short-ish stage as Tour de France stages go. It seems to be getting shorter as the race goes on. Tomorrow, I think it's only 130k or something.
I wonder, is that anything to do with, I mean, I don't know why that is happening. As you said, as the climbs get steeper and bigger, the stages seem to be shorter. But
yeah, they don't want them out there all day.
Yeah, which is fair. Yeah.
Embrun to Isola 2000. We had the horse category climb of Col de Vars, which was 18.8 kilometers long at 5.7%. Then we had the Chim de la Bonnet, 22.9 kilometers long, 6.8% average grade. But we've seen that last kilometer looked gruesome, and that was, they were saying in commentary, basically a road that was an attempt by the local council to make it the highest pass in Europe. They purpose built that, which I think they still didn't get. Up where you were in Granada last year in Pico de Valenta is actually higher.
Yeah, they added this kind of roundabout up the top just to add on an extra couple of 100 meters to make it the highest paved
true road
in Europe.
Niche that is. And Pogačar said it was absolutely brutal. It looked like they were like ascending onto the moon. And then with the Isola 2000, which quite a few of us know because we've seen it before, although not that frequently, it's 16.1 kilometers, 7.1% grade. It's a first cat climb, and it goes up to that ski resort, Isola 2000. Despite what a fella said in our YouTube comment that like, oh, there wasn't much at today's stage over 2,000 meters. There was piles of today's stage over 2,000 meters because up the Chim de la Bonnet, like halfway up that climb nearly, we crested across 2,000 meters. So
you've got 10 kilometers
going uphill, and then the
after
kilometers
2000.
going downhill, which are still at above 2,000. So there was significant portions of today's stage above 2,000
and
meters.
it felt like such significant portions of it descending as well. The descents were these epic ones that you'd love to ride yourself. It's like 35 kilometers down the Bonnet of beautiful road. Descending. If it was closed, yeah, exactly. And yeah, if you could just take it at your time. But watching the descending can be a little bit dull, I think.
You need to put on some Mozart or something in the background. Okay, before we jump into the stage, let me talk about Huel for 1 second, because they're the sponsor of the podcast. Huel's absolutely perfect for cyclists. If you don't have time to cook or prepare food before or after training, it's convenient, it's nutritious, at your fingertips. It's 26 essential vitamins and minerals in every bottle. It's 175 scientifically backed health benefits. There's also 22 grams of protein in a bottle. Definitely beats eating junk convenience food or ordering takeaway. There's 8 mouth-watering flavors. Iced coffee, that's the jam. That banana is also a classic. Huel Ready to Drink can be delivered directly to your home. Just go on over to Huel, HUEL.com/roadman and go try it out. It's delicious. You'll be addicted to it like me.
Okay. Tell us how it all unfolded today.
The Tour de France is becoming a Tour de France of satellite riders. Even this expression, satellite riders, I don't remember saying it that often. It's just said much more often now. Even Jonas in his post-race is like, hey, we had satellite riders up the road. Satellite riders are riders from your own team who get ahead of the race in an attempt for them to come back into play at some point. Because you would have guys like Kelderman who would be typically dropped before the final sequence of events, but by putting them ahead of the race, he can come back into play. So that's what we had early. We had a battle to get satellite riders in the break, and Visma done it really well because the break contained Carapaz, who actually had initially missed the break, and EF had to do great work to get him across. Now it's put him in a super position for the KOM competition, which we'll get onto in a little bit. But the break was Carapaz, Jorgensen, big hitter in the break. He was just lying, I think, 13th or 14th or so going into the stage. Simon Yates, who was in the break yesterday, Kelderman again, Visma, and former Giro winner who was in the break yesterday as well, Jay Hindley. So we had the 2 satellite riders up the road. Quickstep had some satellite riders early, but that was the main break after everything kind of settled down.
That strategy, though, of UAE pacing the Col de Bonnet, and did that just kind of play into Visma's hands? Because they have 2 men up the road at that stage. So is it playing into their strategy?
You know what? They've often had the same strategy they've both played the exact same hand and the exact same strategy a bunch of times. Like, both of them took the big bet in this entire Tour de France. It was on the exact same thing. Visma wanted to put pressure. UAE wanted to put pressure on Visma early in the race, thinking that Jonas would fall apart later in the race because he didn't have enough training done, enough preparation done, specifically coming into the Tour de France off the back of the Basque Country.
But they admitted to doing that last year to Pogačar as well, because yeah.
But the bet was also that Visma thought that, well, if we can get him into the 3rd week, he's going to get better and better because he's coming in fresher. So they were both really like, you know, it was a double-edged kind of sword for the two of them. And it felt like today was like that with Visma had 2 riders in the break. So if you have 2 riders in the break from behind, you want to make the race as hard as possible. So Jonas's team wanted to make the race as hard as possible so Jonas can attack to get across to those 2. But they didn't have to do that work because UAE were just gambling on, we want to make this race as hard as possible for our own reasons. So there was an alignment to the 2 reasons. Yeah. And then it just really comes down to legs. So yeah, in a sense, UAE were doing a lot of the work that Jumbo would have liked to do, Visma would have liked to do. I'm forever saying Jumbo, they need to get back that sponsor.
Maybe next year you'll get it right.
Yeah, by the time they change sponsor, I'll get it right. So they would have liked to be doing that work themselves, but it wasn't necessary. And then they ended up just getting all dropped because Niels Pollitt he dropped half the Visma team. Like, people that we would have expected to see big turns out of: Trapnik, Thies Benoot, Lemon. But also what cracks me with the Lemon thing is, you know, stage 19 is a big stage for the team. You know Jonas is going to make his move there, and you put him in the break yesterday. Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? Have some advanced planning. Wout's out the back as well today. So I get that they have to try and get something out of the race.
But also, Niels Pollitt is a complete animal. Best teeth in the peloton, by the way, doesn't he? You can see him coming a mile away because his mouth breathing and his teeth he has one of those Hollywood smiles. I think you can see
like
you can see his teeth are so white. You can see them from space. It's just one thing I've always noticed. But yeah, he was insane today.
Well, like, he's 80 plus kilograms and he's dropping like Felix Gall from Agility de Catalan, who's their main GC rider, knocking on the door of the top 10.
Crazy.
So that's pretty disheartening when you look up and you see the full UAE team are still there. Like, Yates is still there, Almeida is still there, Sivakov is still there, Pollitt is still there, Soler is still there, Pogačar is obviously still there, nose breathing, and you're a top 10 GC rider and you're getting dropped. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, that is hard.
But I think we subsequently heard from Jonas that was at the point when he had communicated. We didn't know. We were kind of thinking, is he going to maybe jump on the last kilometre of the Bonnet when it gets super hard? Because he had Jorgensen up the road. There was a lot of speculation and talk as to why he changed bikes as well. Jonas opted for the more aero of the 2 Cervelo frames, not his climbing bike. So there's a weight penalty with it. So a lot of people were talking about get Jorgensen ahead because he's a great descender and he's going to go across to him and they'll try and etch out some time on the descent. Maybe Poggy doesn't want to take those crazy risks on the descent and, you know, fails to follow.
So Jonas would have brought that bike to help him descend faster because he's so light. Is that the thinking?
It's hard to know, but Jorgensen and Jonas, chose to have the aero bike today, which is a little bit heavier than the climbing bike. But I'm sure they crunched the data on it. Maybe the climbs were at such a speed and such a mild gradient that it was actually faster for them to go with the aero bike over the climbing bike. Who knows? But Jonas had communicated internally to the team halfway up the Bonnet that he wasn't on a good day. And at that point, the decision was made that the guys up front, specifically Jorgensen with the help of Kelderman, was going to go for the stage. But we didn't really know it at that point. And back the road, Carapaz, he took the Chem de la Bonnet for 40 points for the horse category climb, which is a massive, massive help to him taking the KOM jersey. like overall for this Tour de France.
Yeah, and he also got the most combative rider today because he went so hard for those 40 points. So fair
He's
play
been
to
quite
him.
good. I know you don't love him, but he's been yellow jersey, the stage we went over to watch. He's had the stage win. He's been out in the break quite a bit.
Yeah,
like
I
KOM jersey.
I think you know, as I said, I was kind of warming to him. I have enjoyed watching him today. Again, he was kind of doing Carapaz things, faking it, then getting on, doing nothing, doing no turns, faking it even more than surging. I was a bit like, oh, now I remember why I don't really like him. But no, fair play to him. He's in the polka dot jersey, and that's huge for EF, a team that I absolutely love.
Yeah, but you know what? He also doesn't have to ride in that group. Visma have 2 riders in that. They're trying to play this satellite rider card. And he contributed with them a lot more than who else was in that move? Yates was in that move.
And there was an Arkea guy, Rodriguez.
From Arkea, Rodriguez was in it. So he contributed a lot more than
in that group now.
Riders.
The 2 Jumbo guys or Visma guys were at one point getting a little bit peeved because they were the only one doing turns, and you could see them. You could see Matteo Jorgensen coming off the front at one stage. The other Visma guy came up, and you could see Matteo saying to the other riders, like, come on, let's share the load, and no one was riding at that point.
You're going to try, if you're Matteo, you're going to try and cajole them into doing a bit more, but ultimately they're like, this is your battle plan, you go execute. You know, you're the one whose head is on the chopping block, all the media, everyone's watching you for this. I'm sitting here and I'm sitting in the lounge and I'm having a drink and a smoke, and then when it's time to go, I'll save my energy.
No, it's smart racing.
Carapaz did look cool again on the descent. We spent a lot of time on the descent following Guillaume Martin. Which
I think it's the French TV. They just kind of follow the French riders a lot. I mean, it's kind of like the commentary that we watch, the British commentary. They focus a lot on the British riders as well. So it was fair enough. I actually thought it was really cool to watch it. Really like heart in your mouth stuff. And he wouldn't be very famous for being a particularly good descender, but he did well on the...
I wouldn't say he's famous for being a bad descender either. He's just... I don't know what he's famous for, not winning the race.
Yeah, exactly. No, but that was quite interesting. But yeah, so the descending was amazing. Jorgensen is also well able to go downhill. Yeah,
Tajay moved up the second wheel, which was about the most interesting thing I've seen for the descent. Not that he does a distrust of his teammates, but it's a sheer mathematics thing. If you have 5 guys in front of you, you have 5 chances of someone sliding out. You move up to second. You've only 1 chance of someone sliding out. You put someone who's a good descender in front of you, like Soler, you get to follow his line. He breaks the wind, and you minimise that chance of someone crashing in front of you. And even at that, he laid off 2-3 bike lengths. So he wasn't taking 100% of that aerodynamic benefit. He said, I'll take a little bit of wind to give myself that out. If there is a crash, you see Bobolocky Armstrong on years ago where he cut through the cornfield. It was epic TV. If there is that moment, it gives him a split-second reaction time, because that's the only way he's going to lose the Tour de France now is a crash or illness.
Yeah.
The motorbike ahead on the descent also makes a huge difference, because you can see the brake light. And I know that sounds crazy, but when you're going downhill at that speed, 70, 80, 90 kilometers an hour, seeing how hard they are on the brakes, it tells you if the corner's opening out or not. And it was terrifying watching like Adam Blythe and the guys on the back of the motorbike.
Yeah, it was like he was on the back and they cut to him and they were like leaned right over around the corners, and he was kind of saying, himself. Oh Jesus, yeah. Even Sean Kelly came on, he was like, I would not trade places with Adam. Adam
does a great job on the back of the bike.
He does a really good job.
I enjoy him on the back of the bike a lot more so than the kind of artificial banter in the studio.
I agree.
He's very good on the back of the bike.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the race. So we're in the last climb of the day. We've a 4-minute gap at the base of the climb. I know Robbie McEwen and some of the pro pundits were speculating that would be enough. Larry Warbass and Eurosport commentary speculating that'd be enough. I was doing the maths and going, there's absolutely no way that's enough, because Yates took 45 seconds out in the first kilometre and a half. And he didn't look like he was moving. And we've seen the data comparisons from Yates to Pogačar. So I was like, when he goes, if he goes, which he laid it out the morning that he was going to go, and the team rode all day. So we're like, he's definitely going.
Yeah.
And at the point then at 13k to go, when Jorgensen attacked the Kelderman Carapaz Yates group, then you were kind of like, okay, it's over. Jonas is done for the day.
Jonas is not going to attack there, is he? Or should he have?
Like, Jonas didn't have legs. I think that was the simple. Like, the tactics today were brilliantly simple from Visma. They put 2 men in the break brilliantly, 2 of their strongest climbers. Jonas needs to get across to them. Yeah. But that's easy to do in theory. That's easy to do in the team bus meeting in the morning. We're in the third week of a Grand Tour. He had a month and a half preparation. He's noticeably fatigued. He's not the same rider he was in week 1 or week 2. He's just fatigued. He can't get across. He can't make the move.
And he did give the green light at that stage to, for Jorgensen to make go. He'd already given the green light to Jorgensen to go across.
Yeah, so he was saying after, I wasn't on a good day. Halfway through the stage, I had to switch my mindset from going for the win. And that was the reason we had Matteo and Wilco in the first place, to have satellite riders if I wanted to go. I had to switch my mindset from attacking to try and follow instead. Tomorrow's more the same. I'll try to follow Remco. So yeah, at that point, I think it was pretty clear when you're seeing Jorgensen striking out for home that we're going to see nothing from Jonas. At best, we're going to see him holding on to Remco.
Jorgensen's a really interesting story as well, isn't he? He's 25. He's just a young buck. This is his third Tour de France, and he's won in the last year Paris-Nice, Dwars van Vlaanderen, and he got a second place at the Criterium de Dauphine. And he lives in Nice with Sean Quinn, the EF education rider. So they have like a nice little setup there. That's kind of what he put his win in Paris-Nice down to, because he knows the roads there. But the biggest thing about Jorgensen is that he is kind of well known for when he worked for, or when he was in Team Movistar, he personally put a lot of investment into his craft. So he basically spent every single penny that of his salary, and he put that back into improving aerodynamics, nutrition. So this is a quote from him from a couple of months ago. This is when he was with Movistar. I can say now that I spent every penny of my salary so far this year on my own performance, between solo camps, time trial material, nutrition, massage and motor pacing. It all made me better and compounded on itself. In January, I spent almost the entire month alone in an altitude hotel. I bought custom time trial extensions with the help and testing of Ivan Velasco, one of the Movistar coaches. And I hired a nutritionist and have weighed and logged every gram of food I've eaten since December to make sure I'm always at race weight and adequately fueled. He said it's all paid off. So this is when he was with Movistar. He's completely data obsessed. And now that he's moved over to a team like Visma Lease Bike, he can now focus on getting results, can't he, and performing. He doesn't have to put every single penny of his salary back into...
Yeah, he's like a gravel privateer for a while when he was at Movistar, having to organise it all himself.
I didn't realise that Movistar were kind of... I'm sure they're funded. They're altitude. They're traditional. There are altitude camps. They do get paid. Like, there is nutritionists. But he just wanted to bring it on to another level, which is...
There's layers within all this even. I've talked to some of the nutritionists who are involved inside Ineos, and even within that, there's different standards of care within that. So yeah, no, it's chapeau, fair play to him.
It would have been, it was super to see him out in front. I just think I love these big guys, when you see them all day after all the work that he's put in for his teammate over the last 2.5 weeks. So it was great to see him.
And when he attacked, what was interesting, they found themselves briefly in the perfect position. I'll bet maybe not quite a big enough lead. He had about 4 minutes with 12K to go just before Yates took it up. But he found himself in that position where he's up the road, and then behind he has Carapaz chasing, but he has Kelderman sitting on Carapaz chasing. Now, I know that doesn't really feel like it does anything, but that sucks your morale. If you're Carapaz and you feel like someone's just sitting on you, like, it feels like an anchor. It feels like you're towing a trailer up the climb, and it's really hard. And that gap just extended. Jorgensen got away. They were in a super good position, but obviously Yates took up the chase behind, and there were some big victims on GC. Like, Rodriguez, probably the most noted victim as soon as Yates started pacing. Like, he was 6th on GC going into today. I think he still held on to 6th, but it was pretty unsettling from an Ineos point of view. And we talked yesterday about how bad a Tour de France they've had already. And I got a correction. Pidcock also finished 2nd on the gravel stage. So they've had 2 second places. Whoop-de-hoo, great job, lads, for the most funded, highly funded team in the entire World Tour. 2 second places and a 6th place, I think. So disappointing to see Rodriguez, who I really like, getting dropped. And then 8.7k to go. Poggy attacks. And what was interesting about Poggy's attack was Yates is pacing, Almeida's still there, but Poggy attacks before Almeida starts pacing. And I read quite a lot into that. I thought that's just such a selfless way to do it, because Pogačar can say, right, Yates, you up it until you're gone, drops. Now Almeida, you hit it till you're gone and drops. But both those guys are in the top 10. And undoubtedly, if they had both given a kilometre full gas each, Poggy has much less work to do, and he's a much higher statistical chance of winning the stage, a much more efficient way to do it. But I think it spoke so much to his generosity, his humility.
I called as we were watching it. I was like, I wonder will he not make Almeida ride for him because he's so high up in the GC standings. He's fourth, and you were like, can't see it. Like the stage win is more important than João Almeida's position in the GC standings. But he really did, done
him a solid.
He did him solid, big time. Yeah.
So that was really interesting, and I thought that's Pogačar's just so loved. I love Pogačar, I love watching him, you love watching him, I hate hearing the speculation about him, and that was such a nice gesture, I thought, to go that far out and potentially not catch Jorgensen, because he only caught him in the last 2k, and we've seen back the road, Jonas wasn't really interested in following Pogačar. He's more interested in just trying to follow Remco.
Yeah, hold on to second place. That's kind of what he's doing at the minute. So we saw Remco the whole day. He's just sitting pretty, isn't he? He always looks cool as a cucumber and quite calm, never too stressed, never putting in too much of an effort. Were you impressed with him today?
I've been impressed with Remco for the entire 3 weeks. There's been a lot of criticism of Remco in the past couple of years that he can do one-day race. Obviously, he can do one-day races. He's one of the best one-day racers in the world. He's one of the brightest talents in cycling. We've seen him dominate week-long races. Even though he won the Vuelta, he didn't seem to silence those critics that said he couldn't race for 3 weeks. He can't race 30-minute plus climbs. He can't race at altitude. And I think he silenced a lot of that, because even when he won the Vuelta, he was fading in the last week, and Roglic was getting stronger and stronger and stronger in the last week, and looked like he might jump him on GC to take pole position, but then Roglic crashed out. Remco ultimately won the Vuelta, but it didn't really settle those criticisms. But I think this demonstration from Remco now should be rubber stamped that he is a GC rider, and he will win the Tour de France someday.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So when we saw Pogačar catching up on Matteo Jorgensen, then we kind of saw him take his foot off the gas for a second, and then he sprinted past Matteo Jorgensen. Why would he do that rather than just take it at his normal pace?
Out of gas, like he said at the finish line, that he was nearly out of gas. That's why you see him looking back in the last kilometre, because he wasn't sure if Jorgensen was going to come back to him and win the sprint. He didn't want to pass him slow for that reason, that he was mainly out of gas. So if he passed him slow, he couldn't turn up the temperature like boiling a lobster in a pot slowly to ride Jorgensen off the wheel, that he needed to gap him. So when he's already riding at 7 watts per kilogram, to gap him, he's go to 9 watts, 10 watts per kilogram for 10, 15 seconds is going to be super hard unless he eases back. So he eases it back to maybe 6 watts a kilogram for the 30 seconds, 40 seconds before he catches him a little bit slower. So when he gets there, he's fresh, and then he can get clear, and then Jorgensen hasn't got that aero advantage. Plus, he's unsure that Pogačar hasn't ridden the whole climb at this speed, so it's just demoralising, and you don't even attempt to go with him. So
yeah, because you're right. We did see Poggy look back a couple of times, didn't we? I think maybe he was feeling it in his legs at that point, and he was double checking that Jorgensen wasn't catching up on him. Okay, so the numbers. Yeah,
we went through them at the top of the show. I'll just skim through it again. At 6.83 watts per kilogram for 37 minutes. What was most interesting, actually, I thought today, was a great tweet from Dan Lloyd that said, if Pogačar was a team, he'd currently be sitting 10th place in the 2024 World Tour team rankings. And that's one place ahead of Ineos Grenadiers.
You're turning into quite the Ineos basher. Give them a break. But that is quite the statistic, isn't it? It's quite scary.
Other reaction from the stage, Yates, he was pretty, business as usual. Today I just did my job. We knew to climb well after training camp here after the Tour de Suisse. It was a good day. Also said the radios were rubbish, so he didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah, and he couldn't hear. He said, the radios are always rubbish, but he especially couldn't hear anything with the crowds going absolutely insane for the entire climb up.
And then Tajay, again, kind of echoing what Yates said. He said, we, the team at a training camp, discussed how we wanted to race this day, and we did it exactly like we said, to the point where I attacked, and it went perfect 100%.
Yeah, because I think they had discussed beforehand. They had done a training camp on this, in this area. They know that climb quite well. And I think he was kind of saying, okay, we are 100% going to attack just before the tunnel. And they played it absolutely perfectly. I got a little bit of reaction for Matteo Jorgensen as well, who came second, and he actually only came across the line about 25 seconds after 21. So like that was an amazing fight from Jorgensen. He said, of course I'm disappointed, I was so close. Last year I also came very close to a stage win. I did everything I could today, but in the end it wasn't to be. I rode very focused and wanted to squeeze everything out of it. When I heard that Pogačar was getting closer in the finale, I could already feel the pressure. I kept fighting for it with every fibre of my body. Unfortunately, that was not rewarded today. Oh, it's heartbreaking, isn't it?
Cycling's not a fairy tale.
Zero-sum game, isn't it? You win or you lose. Very, very tough. Okay, what about...
You win or you learn.
You win or you learn.
Stage was won by Pogačar, 4 hours, 4 minutes. As we said, a pretty short stage by Tour standards. Jorgensen at 21 seconds, Yates at 40 seconds. Carapaz done a good ride, holding on for fourth. Evenepoel fifth, Jonas sixth. Almeida, again, we talked about how he was spared by Pogačar not having to go to work. He finished in seventh with Landa Kelderman ninth, and Derek G, another great ride for a top 10. That leaves GC unchanged. Poggy still top. Jonas now more of a deficit, 5:03 behind. Remco 7:01 behind. Almeida 15:07 behind. Landa in fifth at 15:34 behind.
And we had Derek G going up a spot, Matteo Jorgensen going up 5 spots. That's pretty good going.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And then tomorrow is going to be a day where we'll see Carapaz is now taking the lead in the mountains classification as well. So we're going to see Carapaz out in the break tomorrow and trying to put, I would say, a stamp on that mountains competition. Tomorrow's stage is 132 kilometers, like a half day, starting in Nice and finishing in the Col de la Collée. We have climbs that are second category: Col de la Brasse, 10k long at 6.6. Col de Turini, which is a very famous climb for a lot of the riders who live down that part of the world in the south of France. And a lot of our roadman lads are out there as well. They'll be on the road there, so keep an eye out for them. 20.7 kilometers at 5.7%. We have the Col de la Colmane, 7.5 kilometers at 7.1%. And then we have the finishing climb, Col de la Collée, at 15.7 kilometers at 7.1%. I don't expect to see Pogačar going for the stage tomorrow. I expect to see it as a breakaway day. I don't expect to see Jonas attacking to try and get, I think the tour's over from his perspective. It's going to be a defensive ride from him. It's going to be hopefully an aggressive ride from Remco is the one animator we could see. But I'm not sure. Remco started out the Tour de France with the stated aim of winning the white jersey and getting a podium. He has both. If he goes to try and get second, he maybe blows and loses the podium, which would be absolute tactical suicide.
He's almost exactly, he's 2 minutes and 2 seconds behind Vingegaard. So, I mean, he would need to pull out something very strong tomorrow and in the time trial, which he's pretty good at. Yeah,
so
exactly.
Look, if he has eyes on that, I just don't see it though. I just see it, everyone's tired. It's been a tough 3 weeks. There's very little separating the two. We've seen Remco trying to attack him today, and then we've seen that little hand-to-hand kind of come across the line between Jonas and Remco, which, I don't know, felt like a picture of, we'll call it a truce.
I don't know. I think so. We saw at the end, Jonas was so upset with the results, or I don't know, his performance, or maybe it was just emotional.
Tour de France is over for him.
It's over. So, and he was there. He met his wife. He was crying. Actually, Matteo Jorgensen, who had just gotten beaten by Pogačar to get second on the day, was over consoling him, which was nice to see. But yeah, it's done and dusted for Jonas. No third Tour de France for him.
The breakaway day for me tomorrow. Carapaz mopping up a lot of points, and who would we say going to the finish? Yates is going to be out there again. He's getting stronger as the race goes on. So
Simon Yates,
yeah,
he has been. He has. Apparently, he was a little bit sick the last couple of weeks as well. So he's kind of gotten better and better as the days have gone on. I would definitely root for him. I like watching both the Yates brothers.
I'm going to pull out and say Lysenko movie star win tomorrow. I'm going to go left field.
Okay, wow. Can't wait.
There we go. Roadman, thank you for tuning in to another live Tour de France podcast. If you click down here to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming live podcasts and our regular podcast, which will be back after the tour. And if you click up here, there's another video which I know you're going to love. See you tomorrow.